to clarify, and I know what that is.
Just to close out the topic of water, the project will not change the course or flow or impacts of Grassy Island Creek or Sneary Creek or the Lackawanna River. And on a related note, raw water supply, there's been a large change when the project went from wet pooling to dry pooling. The water consumption has been lowered from an estimated 6 million gallons per day to a maximum of 0.4 million gallons per day, or 400,000 gallons per day. And we're forecasting that after real-time running operating will be in the range of 100,000 to 200,000 gallons, depending on a number of different operating systems.
Has LEC?
What's the discharge gonna be?
The discharge permit right now is at 0.29 million gallons per day, and that's a peak number, and the 400,000 gallons per day is a peak number as well.
LEC has entered into an agreement with Pennsylvania American Water Company with respect to water supply, is that correct?
Yes, there's an agreement in place with Pennsylvania American Water Company. 400,000 gallons is a small portion of their total system capacity.
And has the project received a consumptive use permit from SRPC?
Yes, they have.
Did HDR also conduct a hazard assessment?
Yes, we conducted a hazard assessment for the project.
And that's tab 4 of the application?
Yes, it is. It's the back, 25 pages. Yeah, good luck spending that.
There you go.
The fire protection systems are designed in accordance with the Pennsylvania Building Code or Universal Construction Code, as well as National Fire Protection Association standards. And there's also a number of flammable gas systems in the project site. It's hydrogen and natural gas. And there's a number of codes that those systems are designed to meet. There's the Pennsylvania Building Code. There's the American Society of Mechanical Engineers Power Piping Code for the gas. There's a separate ASME code for hydrogen piping. And also there's an overarching number of National Fire Protection Association codes that are for specialty systems that would be designed for the flammable gases.
Excuse me, I have one question.
Sure.
Can we revisit that water one more time?
Yeah.
You said that the discharge amount would be 0.29 million gallons, quarter.
290,000.
290,000. Yeah.
So if the daily use is 100 to 200,000, you're gonna discharge more, so you're counting on 400,000 per day.
We're not counting on 400,000 per day. When the permits are written or requested or applied for, there are upper bounds that need to be included. And the 400,000 is an upper bound of what the consumption would be, that cannot be exceeded. And then the same thing with the discharge. There are upper bounds of what the discharge will be. And we expect to have flow measurements of both of those, so there's a 100% reporting and monitoring of those values.
So this 0.29 mil would be the upper level.
Yes, it will. Typically, discharge will be less than supply. There could be an upset condition where that's not the case, but on an annual average, that's all.
That's why you think 1,500 megawatts.
How much water will it take?
Yeah, generate 1,500 megawatts of electricity. This is the use per gallon,
That's very hard.
roughly.
Yeah, 100 to 200,000 per day.
What's the system capacity?
Well, right now it's just for the council, Jeff.
Oh, sorry.
All right, I'll ask that question. What is the system capacity?
Thank you.
The permit limit from Pennsylvania American, which is backstopped by the SRVC, is 400,000 gallons per day. Pennsylvania American and SRVC have much more capacity than that in their system. I don't know what the limit would be of their system as it ties into
It's
these
actually-
specific.
But your
Yeah.
system is only
It's
gonna
in the
use a
letter.
maximum of 400,000 a day, that would be the max.
Correct.
Add
If I
that.
may, tab F is the letter from Pennsylvania American. And they indicate that they have a total production capacity to supply up to 33 million gallons per day. And we're only asking for 400,000. See what it is, Second paragraph, PAWC owns. It's the fourth line, supply up to 33 million. Alright, so we were at the fire protection system.
Okay, the fire protection systems for the facility include on-site fire water storage. There are redundant fire water pumps, one being electric driven, another one being a diesel engine driven pump in case of a loss of electric power. We do have fire rated barriers as code requires for building separation depending on the contents of each occupancy structure or stored material. There's also a number of specialty detection and suppression and actuation systems for items such as the lube oil system for the steam turbine generator or other items that have a specialty suppression system by code. There are a number of natural gas supply and distribution safety features that we're employing. The first one is a emergency shutoff valve, otherwise known as an ESV. Some people call them a trip valve. It is a both automatic and potentially manually operated fast-acting shutoff valve that's installed right at the interface to the UGI system where it comes into the facility. So if there were an emergent event, isolation could be initiated almost instantly to shut off the gas supply. The UGI distribution network employs liquidized gas. That's not always the case for interstate pipelines, but in this case it is, and it provides obviously the same notification that people would get in general public utilities, an authorized sense of natural gas leaks. And then inside the equipment, there is what's known as combustible gas detectors, and they detect methane in the atmosphere. They provide an alarm warning point at a certain concentration level, where the operator is notified and they can investigate. If it were to reach approaching a more hazardous area where you could reach an explosive limit, the unit would be shut offline and the gas supply to that unit would be isolated.
The hazard assessment also considers chemical hazard.
Yes, it does. There's safety eye wash stations, safety showers for the industrial chemicals that are used in the process.
And finally, the hazard assessment includes a draft emergency response plan.
Yes, LEC is prepared a draft emergency response plan that defines the procedures that the plant staff would use for any potential project hazard. That's been initially discussed with the local emergency first responders, and that will be coordinated and completed in consultation with the appropriate local agencies.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wood. That's all I have.
I have, will all these regulations change from state to state?
The general regulations, a lot of them, the codes that I referenced, like the ASME and the NFPA, are nationwide codes. Each state, in some cases with their building code, adopts various portions of the codes. That's been taken into account in the special specifications for this project. And these codes will all be implemented. I think it's almost universally common practice to do so. But there, to answer your question, the state has the jurisdiction to set which codes
You're
are
not
adopted.
licensed in Pennsylvania, right?
I'm not personally licensed in the state.
And that is why this application, Mr. Milano, was reviewed and certified by Pennsylvania.
Well, I'm just asking a question.
That's one of the early pages, you don't have yours in front of you. You'll see the certification is from Mr. Chad Jacobs with HDR, who is a Pennsylvania certified professional correctional instructor.
I have a question. In a previous meeting, there was some discussion about blast walls. In your experience with natural gas-fired plants, is there any NFPA requirement or gas pipeline issues as it enters the plant that addresses that issue of blast walls?
There's no code requirement and there's no design practice or standard practice that would employ a blast wall at a facility for electric power generation in general and for natural gas combined cycles specifically.
And what occupancy classifications would you come under in the IBC?
It would all depend on the personnel occupancy of the building or structure, as well as the items that are stored in them. So it's a combination of how much personnel has access in there and what types of hazards are there. Generally, I would think the occupied facilities would primarily be the administration control building, the warehouse, and other provisions would be in place to isolate and separate things. Like we have a special chemical storage building for oil and paint and things like that. That's a separate structure.
So all those different occupancy classifications would be expected in a code review in a final plan.
Absolutely, that's generally how they get agreed upon with the local municipality, the building official. There's a submittal that includes a summary of how the building is used, because you would need to know what the use of the building is and what's in it, rather than, you can't tell that just from the drawing. So that would need to be submitted for information.
Okay, thank you. Oh, just another question. I'm going back to the properties. You discussed the properties on the east side of the highway. But my understanding is you have some kind of arrangement on the west side of the highway. How are we getting the power from the plant over to some existing 230 kV line that runs through the borough of Jessup?
The interconnection between the proposed facility and it's a PP&L only substation that's actually called Lackawanna Substation. And it's up on the hill about 3 or 4 miles from the site. As
On the
crow
west
flies.
wall?
Yes, yes. PP&L is responsible to bring the electric transmission lines from that substation to the LEC power facility. And they are gonna come from the direction that you described.
Oh, so that easement would be between PP&L and the landowner?
It would be, and much of the route is on existing right-of-way. It's following a parallel path of the existing overhead lines in that.
And then you come through, is it Pompey lines?
I believe it is Pompey lands on the opposite side of the Casey Highway from this facility.
Thank you.
You talked a little bit before about vibrations during the construction phase. There will be blasting that's gonna be done.
There will be blasting that will be done.
Pile driving.
There are not pile driving, no.
Okay. How will that blasting affect not only mines and voids in that particular area, but away from that area, like 5,000-foot radius?
As part of the blasting program, obviously that's regulated by the state under separate regulations, but we have established specifications with our EPC contractor for specific acceleration velocity limits to, to maintain low levels of vibration for neighboring structures. Obviously, we don't wanna shake anything else in the area, so it's relatively low-level, softer blasting is what you're There could potentially be some underground, adjustments if there's voids in the general area that could collapse a void that's there potentially if it were a mining area. I think the best way to address that issue is with monitoring while you're doing the program at the perimeter of the project site.
Generally, is there a radius that you think that might affect away from the site?
I probably couldn't speculate on what that is. I don't know.
That's something we assume, that would be addressed in the context of the.
We can't hear, we can't hear it all.
We assume that's something that would be addressed in the context of the building application, because that's one of those standards that would have to be applied for purposes of construction.
And land development?
Probably more building permit than land development. That's more of a construction issue than a development issue.
In monitoring of water discharge, did you get anyone to speak about monitoring or is that someone else in the group?
I could speak to that.
Monitoring of discharge for, you know, toxins in the water or something of that nature. What is the frequency of monitoring? Do you know what the regulations are here?
There are, I believe, there are a number of constituents that are grab sampled or they're analyzed daily and reported daily. There are other constituents that are analyzed and reported on a wider range. It depends what the constituent is and what the DEP feels are the risk factors associated with those constituents.
Those would all be conditions of the NPDS industrial as well.
And we talked about monitoring within the borough with a designated person or borough engineer, and you can actually open to that.
Absolutely. Sharing the data, the condition that I think you're talking about, Mr. Stanley, I know most people were talking about air, but it would be any potential discharge, frankly, when we talk about monitoring in that particular condition, with respect to a borough, obviously a qualified borough representative, because you want somebody who knows what they're looking at. But it would be all site activities.
I would have that same question for air, water, and noise.
Yes. Absolutely.
And I have another question, but I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but as far as the emissions from the stacks, I mean visible emissions.
We have a witness who's gonna address that, actually, the very next one
Okay,
is
that's all right, I'll
Stevens,
wait.
if that's okay.
So, you know, on monitoring of air, water, and noise, I mean, as far as the intervention process, I don't know if you're discussing that.
An intervention,
As to what
a
the.
resolution process of some sort, absolutely, of course. And, you know, we talked about it very briefly last week, obvious reason. But yeah, I think one of the concepts that was discussed was some sort of a complaint resolution procedure, which is, I think, is another one of the conditions that we've agreed to, how that would be implemented. So all of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're at the same level when you see an emission or a standard having to do with.
How do you resolve
water,
that?
noise.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, no, and we're open to.
intervention process would be maybe stopping production or something to that effect. I'm sure we would need to talk about that.
There would have to be a violation resolution process. I know, for example, when speaks can talk about what happens if someone complains about too much noise, for example. But it's I don't want to go too far.
I'll let it go. I'll let it go.
But
That's at that point.
you have to determine what's going on, why is it happening, and if it's something that's caused by the plant, how do you resolve it? So it's not stop everything
No, I
immediately.
understand.